Assalamu alaikum and a very warm welcome to the debate. I'm Tayyaba Nasar Khan on PTV World. We're going to bring you some significant developments from yesterday night and today as well. In a very important development, the IMF, the Executive Board of IMF, has approved about approximately $700 million in the tranche that was being given to Pakistan, making a total of about $1.9 million until now, billion dollars until now rather, out of the $3 billion that has to be given to Pakistan. It announced that they successfully concluded their first review of Pakistan's economic program headed by the Standby Agreement as well, and it paved the way for a prosperous future for the economy of Pakistan as well. Unfortunately, the inflation is still high, but we have seen that in the intraday trade, the stocks have gained over 500 points, showing us a significant development and, of course, a positive note as well, which, of course, makes it very significant for Pakistan to ensure that the economic prosperity and structural policies are going to be taking place. They will be ensured, and of course this will bring a new development for Pakistan in a more positive trajectory, and hopefully the inflation is going to reduce as well. The IMF has shown its eagerness with Pakistan. It has shown its positive remarks with Pakistan, according to the Finance Ministry as well, making it very significant again to ensure that Pakistan continues on the path of stringent policy towards economics right now. Of course, the tax net has also been increased as well. The IMF board also noted that the macroeconomic conditions in Pakistan, they have improved, and they've generally improved, with a growth of about 2% expected in 2024 alone, which of course is also very positive development as well. And also we do know that the bailout deal, however, the tax has increased, as I was just saying earlier as well, and about $1.34 billion of tax has increased. What will be the implication? We are going to talk about this in our show, and of course in the second segment we will be talking about the recent terror wave in Pakistan that we have seen. We've seen about a 69% increase in the violent militant attacks, according to the report of CRSCC, and also a PICS report also shows us that about 1,500 violent cases have taken place in 2023 alone. This all has started happening after, of course, the TTP, Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, had unilaterally taken a decision to hold the ceasefire, to come out of the ceasefire on November 2022. And until then, and from then rather, the attacks, the terror attacks have increased. But it's not just TLP, as we know. It's also BLA, it's also BLF, it is also ISK, which are all taking place, and they're all taking part in the targeting of Pakistan. Especially TTP is targeting the security personnel. Last week we saw the incident in Bunair as well, and we also saw incident earlier in December in DI Khan. Unfortunately, this wave is happening, but in 2024, will this wave continue? And especially when the elections are around the corner, what is going to happen? How do we ensure the security of those who are going to come out to vote in the merged districts, KP and Balochistan? We're all going to talk about that. And of course, in order to talk about our topics, we have our guests as well present on our panel. We have on my left is Farrukh Pitafi. He has come after a short break. Thank you so much for joining us back. His mother was unfortunately not feeling well, but he has joined us back. Thank you for coming, Farrukh. And of course, on my right, there is Raja Faisal, who is the political analyst as well. Welcome, Raja Faisal. Online, we've been joined by Dr. Khaqan Najib, who is an economist. Thank you so much for joining us. And also, we will be later joined in the second segment by Brigadier Retired Waqar Khan, who's also a senior analyst. Welcome, ladies, rather gentlemen. Unfortunately, we don't have a lady on the panel today, but hopefully we will have one Monday.
No, you are here.
Right, I'm here. Welcome, lady and gentlemen.
Yeah. You are anchoring us.
Right. So let's go on our first segment. Very significant development. The IMF, the tranche, which was, of course, in a limbo back in 2023, Farrukh, a very significant limbo that we see as well. But now we have $700 million given to us, making a total of $1.9 billion as well. You know, the rollover from the friendly countries such as China, UAE, and such as Saudi Arabia had also stopped because of this as well. Do you think this current rollover is going to help in reaching out to friendly countries as well, or do we need to go forward with our reciprocation of friendliness?
Right, Tayyaba, thank you very much for this question. I think that our regular viewers have been listening to Dr. Hakan Najib, other participants, and as he kept on pointing out that Pakistan's case with the IMF is strengthening right now, and that we are on the main track, and we haven't actually abandoned that. So that is great news at this moment. I think that in coming days, if we can stay the course, we are going to see more progress. Coupled with this this tranche which was approved, we have also seen projections by IMF which are very positive, with the exception of perhaps a current account deficit. They see inflation going down. They see financial growth, economic growth actually picking up. So with all those things, I think we have a good future, and this is also this actually brings bring us to the need for a pat on the back of the caretaker government, because it seems that they have delivered. It was very difficult to keep on delivering on these matters, but I think that that is done. I think more of this will be in the ballpark of Dr. Hakan Najib. But
Right.
over to you.
Dr. Hakan Najib, let's come to you as well. Farooq has just talked about inflation. The IMF measures have created an all-time inflation of about 38% year on year, and it is going to follow and still hovering over about 30%. Of course, it's very much adversely affecting and impacting the underprivileged of the society as well. And we did see that the IMF chief said that we should rather tax those who are the rich rather than the poor. So what is the situation in your in your perspective? Is the inflation going to come down anytime soon?
And Dr. Saab, could you also add to this your overall assessment of the economic situation right now?
So Taiba and Patafi Saab, good to see you guys. Pakistan's case, when we went to the IMF in June, was so delicate that Pakistan had $2.9 billion in reserves, and the last IMF program, the ninth review was incomplete, and because of the ninth review being incomplete, Pakistan's friendly countries, bilaterals, multilaterals, commercials had all held back their monies, and we were talking of default. And Patafi Saab, as rightly said, we all kept talking about going back to the fund. We did. On 30th of September, we completed the first review, which means that the 30th September base targets are the ones which have gone to the board yesterday, for which we have received $700 million. We have done some fiscal consolidation, which means that we have tried to narrow the gap of our expenditures and of our taxation. Last year, this was 1% of deficit. This year, it's 0.9. So you can see a marginal improvement there. We have let the foreign exchange market work. We have let the market-based exchange rate work. Not that alone, but we have also taken the regulatory measures on the exchange companies. We have also taken measures on curbing the black market or the illegitimate market, and the crackdown there or the enforcement measures there was the second part. And you have seen that there is relative stability, where every day, go back 6 months, your currency was losing value to today even gaining value and hovering at about 280 to a dollar from somewhere around 315. So that's the second part of the adjustment that has happened. We've also held a tight monetary policy, but that's something that both you and Patafi Saab have mentioned in my overall analysis has not helped bring down inflation.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is that, yes, we have curbed the demand on the private sector side. Many people would tell you it's a bad idea to have a high policy rate or a tight monetary policy. But when you go with the fund, that's something built in the fund, modeling that you will carry this through. And the reason is to curb private sector demand. So let me just simply put some figures, and you'll understand. On you look at the automobile demand, it's dropped by almost 50%. If the automobile drop in the domestic sector happens, then you're importing less CBUs, the units which come in and get assembled here. So you have less pressure on the exchange rate. If you have less pressure on the exchange rate, your inflation, goes down. If you have less demand, your, private sector credit offtake drops. So it's worked there. The problem here is that because of the fiscal deficits that we carry, the demand on the government side has unfortunately not dropped, and we've had to borrow heavily from the banks. Secondly, the kind of pricing adjustments which were overdue for years in the gas sector. I think about 3.5 years happened on the 1st of July, were to happen on the 1st of July, happened sometime in October, November, when the caretaker government and the establishment, or the SIFC put together, took that view. A big adjustment came there. Even today, that's showing up in our figures. Annual rebasing on the gas, annual rebasing on the electricity, quarterly adjustment, lot of price pass through. So that's the second reason why you have this. And of course, the third reason, which is our long-term reason, is that floods hurt the productivity of Pakistan, the agriculture sector, which is undeniably weak compared to the world, and our manufacturing sector's capability is also weak. When you have a weak productive capacity, so you put in more to produce less, so that keeps the prices high. And even now, our SPI is on the higher side. But the other indicators, as I said, have started to look better.
Right. Dr. Saab, I'm so glad that you actually spoke about monetary policy, particularly policy rate. One question that comes to mind is the integrity of the numbers regarding Pakistan's current account. Because in the past, we have witnessed, especially during PTI's time, when the policy rate was high, at that time, we saw a parking of hot money that could be easily withdrawn. So the current numbers regarding current account deficit or current account, how reliable are they?
So this is true that there was a time when what we called hot money, which came in because we were offering very high interest rates, but something has changed today. What has changed at that time when we were offering, there was a 5% differential on the dollar. Let's say, I think we were offering 5% on the dollar from Pakistan, when the Fed's fund rate in the US was near zero. Today, the Fed's fund rate itself is over 5%, Patafi Saab, so there's a big difference that has happened. And today, when we offer 7% or 7.5%, our differential has come down. So that's very important to remember. So we are being a bit more prudent, but our fund flows towards us are less because the world today is offering very high interest rate. And so considering, again, because we delayed the IMF program and our macro fundamentals are on the weaker side, all Moody's, Fitch, S&P have downgraded us to near a status which is not comfortable on the reviews that they've done with us. That's why our access to commercial funding has been on the lower side. Our access to multilaterals also is on the lower side. But here's why I keep saying that IMF is very, very essential. Once you get this $700 million, just see your reserves were $2.9 billion, Patafi Saab, when you didn't go to the IMF. Yeah. When you get the IMF money, your reserves should be near $8.5 billion. Patafi Saab, 20th of June is the exact date of 2023. I'm just writing an article to be published this Sunday in one of the leading newspapers. So I, dug up that figure. Pakistan had hit 2.9 billion. I had a sleepless night, so I very distinctly remember that time. Today, I will sleep very comfortably knowing that the next week State Bank reserves should show $8.5 billion, which is nearing 2 months of Pakistan's import cover. So
that's a remarkable recovery. That's a remarkable recovery. Dr. Khaqan, of course, we will be requiring some strict adherence to the fiscal targets as well. How do we ensure that we strictly adhere to them while ensuring the spending on social areas as well, such as BISP, and of course protecting the social spending?
It's a good question, Taiba. So, Alhamdulillah, that's where we are. The future path for the next 6 months, because programs get recorded. So, let me also say this. Pakistan should complete the next review, which is due in February, on the 31st of December targets. Pakistan should then prepare for the next IMF program and then do what, Taiba, you have said. And that is that prepare the next Pakistan's budget, which should have targeted subsidies through the income support program. Mashallah, all the governments have supported this program. I've always given credit to all the governments. I was on the table when we started this program with the People's Party government with a meager amount of $20 billion, calling it the Benazir Income Support Program, till today, where we are now doing in the caretaker setup about $466 billion, and we will reach 9.3 million households this year, inshallah. So this is a flagship program of Pakistan. There is less or almost, near corruption free. That nothing is corruption free, but all the foreign multilaterals have looked at it. Our local friends have looked at it. It seems to be doing quite good work. So the next Pakistan's budget should be thinking of removing subsidies from all over the place, from electricity, from gas, from my house, from the people who can pay up, and targeting it through the income support program. I wouldn't even mind if we take this 466, my best guess is to 600 or 650 billion. The good part here is, Taiba, that the IMF would be very happy if you do that, because it gives them the cover that yes, whereas we are tightening, we are doing monetary policy which is maybe slowing business, not creating employment, but they're happy to do this on the income support. And then, of course, our tax reforms and other expenditure reforms, which should form the bedrock of the next Pakistan's expenditure and taxation policy in the next budget. So 3 major transitions are about to happen February 8th. Patafi Saab and our political expert are better to talk about that. But the second transition is the IMF program. This is a standby arrangement. The IMF, we call them by names and we treat them as adversary, has helped you navigate the 9 months of a caretaker setup with whom they could not have a longer term program. And now it is time for you to write your own program and transition into a new one. And as smoothly as we do the elections is as smoothly as we handle the economic transition. The least
Faisal, this is
bothered
what I'm going to come
will
to
be
you
the
towards
people.
now. Right, Faisal, I'm going to come to you towards this as well, because February 8th, a very significant date because the elections are happening as well. The caretaker setup, IMF was able to, as Dr. Khaqan has rightly pointed out, IMF was able to help the caretaker setup navigate the economic situation. But a new government is going to come after February the 8th. Do you think these policies are going to be furthered by the new government, or will we see any hindrance after the new government comes?
Especially regarding the exchange rate.
Exactly.
Taiba, it's an excellent question, but to be very fair, when it comes to economy, I always resort to Dr. Khaqan's narratives through obviously he writes articles and I go through his articles and I enlighten myself when it comes to economy. He is the maestro. So whatever I say here, it would be having a highlight from his articles. So when we talk about economic stability of the country and whether it is easier for the upcoming government to obviously have the negotiations with the IMF or not, to be honest, what I have learned that it is always easier for a fresh government to have talks with the IMF, and IMF actually prefers talking to the government that is just coming into office, because they can understand that of course this government is going to have a longer time period. It would be having at least 4 budgets to go through, so obviously they prefer talking to them.
You're talking
And-
about the next government.
yeah, the next government.
Why 4 budget? Why not 5?
Well, at least
They
4.
have 5.
At least 4. Yeah.
Technically 5. actually.
Otherwise, the last budget is always a political budget, so I always call it a political budget.
Nice shape, by the way.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to say is, it's always easier for IMF to have very smooth talks with a fresh government. So to me, I think whatever the government after February 8 elections, it would be a sort of environment in which we would be having political stability. I hope so, and I pray for it, because if after free and fair election we have a government on the Constitution Avenue which is true to the best of people's will, then of course there won't be any hindrances in terms of political stability. Once we have ensured the political stability, then of
Yeah,
course
and-
the economic stability would obviously strengthen itself with
Rajesh
the
Saab,
help
I'm
of
glad that you're talking about economic stability, political stability. Let me ask you a political question.
Yeah.
Can you name the 3 major parties candidates for finance ministers?
finance ministers. Obviously, Ishaq Dar is one of them for the PMLN.
No, he's not. So far, we haven't heard that he's going to be finance minister. He might be, chairman Senate. Who knows?
Yeah, they have 2-3 more people, but one of them, of course,
It's probably not going to be Miftah
is not
Ismail,
good.
though.
No,
Miftah
he's not.
Yeah, he's not going to come because he has already sidelined from the party.
Yeah.
Then People's Party, they have quite a few names as well. In past, of course, they have
The
been.
names we cannot recall, right?
Yeah, we
MPTI?
we cannot recall, but of course they can resort towards Hafiz Sheikh once more. We have seen in the past that they have been bringing him in the office whenever they were taking the government, and Hafiz Sheikh, of course, he's been part of several of the governments as well. We have seen in past.
Can I ask you a follow-up question very quickly?
Yeah.
What does it tell you about the nature of our political parties?
It does that if, economy or economic stability is not their priority. They
Thank
just
you.
want to get into office and they want to run the show,
Yeah.
not knowing how to sit on the driving seat and how to maintain the government in terms of economy.
And at a
So-
time when economy is a very significant topic and
Exactly.
a driving factor for the political parties, it should be
Yeah.
in fact the driving factor, and also in the manifestos.
With your permission, I just want to obviously go towards Dr. Haqqan. Dr. Haqqan, I just want to ask you about the sort of if we go through the pattern of IMF when they initiate talks. Of course, it has always been seen that when there is a government which is having their last phase in the office, and then after that, of course, there is an election, they are always tough on that government. But when it comes to a government that has just taken up an office, they are quite smooth in talks, and of course they want the deal to go through. Am I right on this, or how would you differentiate if if I need your say on this?
And Dr. Saab, could you also include in this, the importance of exchange rate debate? How important is it going to be for the future, government when there is new dialogue between IMF and the government here? How important a factor it will be?
So, you guys were very rightly saying how important the economy is. Just imagine that new government comes into power on the 1st of March. And the first challenge they are facing is an outgoing IMF program and a decision to be thinking of a new program. The delay or the path of muddling through is there no more. Everyone wants you to get into a program. They have to sit and present a national plan. That national plan should then form the basis of the next IMF plan. Similarly, they have to be thinking about doing the next budget. So just these two things in the first 3 months of taking over, how important the economy is. You guys were just talking about it. This is the level of importance that is attributed to the incoming government. And I really hope that in our coming programs, if I could read a manifesto and I could have an open discussion with you, I've not seen one. So that is the importance, and you guys have very, very aptly put this, that this is the work they should be doing yesterday. On the second part, the exchange rate. The best way to think about it is that we should maintain it, leaving it to the market forces, which does not mean that we should allow a black market to exist, as we eliminated it. Which does not mean that if there are aberrations, we should not be tackling them, but it still does mean that the market will adjust if your supply and demand of dollars is in balance. For that to happen, it means is that your long term productivity should be good, so you should be selling something to the world, and your exports should not be a paltry 25 to 30 billion dollars, or just 8 to 9% of your GDP. But look at your neighbors, your East Asian friends. From 30% to 90% of their GDP is export oriented. That's your exchange rate in the long run. In the short run, if we
Dr. Saab, and Tayyib Sahaba, I know that you'll have to conclude the segment, but I have to very quickly ask another question. I'm very glad, Dr. Saab, that you brought up manifesto. There's one party which has actually offered at least social and economic agenda, that is People's Party, Bilawal Bhutto's 10-point agenda. What do you make of that?
I think as an initial talking points, they are important, where they are talking about devolution. I always try and attribute something good to some parties. So here's my take on the PPP. The rest would be left. That doesn't mean they don't have something that I can say which is the good. That they have always, been constitutionally oriented. So right now, even they said the subjects with the federation should not be with the federal government, and they should go down to the provinces. Right approach. Let's follow it through. So these are the real kind of works that we need to be doing. But then I think on the SOEs, there was little less clarity when they said we could do PPP. Pakistan is a country ripe for only one thing, what you see in the telecom sector. I get the same speed in my house in Paris as I do in Lahore. And the reason is that it's not a Lesco or a Fesco from whom I'm taking that speed. I'm taking it from an internet operator with whom I have 4 competitors, and I can make that choice. That's the way forward for Pakistan on that.
Right, Dr. Khaqan, I have 2 questions. The first is that can we ensure a market determined exchange rate which is going to absorb the external shock? Is that possible? And secondly, and this is a follow-up question to what Farooq asked you earlier as well, and secondly, do you think that this new tranche of about $700 million is going to help us in easing the external debt pressures?
Pakistan needs $25 billion of gross financing this year. I have maintained that figure since the beginning, one of, number of interviews, and I've said this.
And you're spot on.
That, thank you
and
so
you're
much.
spot on. Yeah. Please go ahead, sir.
And out of that, 11 to 12 billion dollars are rollovers. I think we have $1 billion or $2 billion to go in the rollovers. I think that will happen. The rest are borrowings. I think out of that, we have about $5 billion in the kitty. We need to still pick up another $5 billion. With the new 700 million coming in the next couple of months, we need to pick up some commercial funding, which now we should, from 1, China, number 2, UAE, because we have the fund money and we have the fund stamp of approval. If we are able to make the $25 billion, our reserves should either stay above $8.5, $9 billion as we move to the end of the year. And that itself, in the short run, should ensure adequate supply of dollars in the country and should keep the exchange rate comfortable, with minor import restrictions in the near future to be maintained by Pakistan, because the 20% at least, the non-essential imports, we still have to curb till we take our reserves to anywhere between 3 to 5 months of our import. So that's the next part of your question, that yes, with the monies coming in on the debt flows through the IMF program, Secondly, ensuring that our gyration on the exchange rate would be more stable, as I see for the next couple of months, barring any untoward shock on the oil or anything, but still maintaining some import curbs, maintaining the kind of remittances with a good, with a very little difference between the interbank and the open market as it is today, so that most of the
Any
funds
hope,
flow.
any hope, Dr. Saab, of unlocking the flood-related pledges that were made 1 year ago after this successful program?
Oh, I'm so glad I slipped my mind. $9.5 billion. I think the figure right now is $1.5 billion that we've been able to. So that's where the hard work comes, which is putting up projects, whether it's on climate, whether it's on flood-related issues, whether it's on the monies that we need to give. So that's the work the Planning Commission must be doing. There is money there. There is climate-related money there as well. I think Pakistan should definitely be looking at it. These are project monies, Patafi Saab, for a very long gestation of 25 years. This is good debt on a very, very, low interest rate, 5-year kind of what you say, you don't have to pay anything just so that people understand. So these are good project monies, could be put in infrastructure. So I'm glad you brought it up. That's something we should be doing in the next 6 to 12 months as well.
Very quickly, Dr. Haqqan, we know that SIFC is playing a pivotal role to, of course, bring in FDIs in different sectors in Pakistan. With obviously the upcoming government coming into office, stability, reviving itself, and there are no hindrances in terms of, different political parties staging sit-ins somewhere or anything like that. Are you expecting that during this year, by the end of this year, we will be having few of the billions of dollars in shape of FDIs coming to Pakistan?
And by the way, Dr. Saab, because we are talking about SIFC, I was wondering why haven't you actually brought up the matter that SIFC has actually curtailed some of the wasteful spendings by federal and provincial governments?
So so here's how I think about SIFC. See, SIFC is like a whole of government approach where everyone can sit and at least have a brainstorming session and then see, as Patafi Saab rightly said, they were talking about curtailing the PSTP monies, which the provinces should be doing, and curtailing those projects. So good work there. On the external front, sometimes I say this with sorrow, we created these BOIs and privatization commissions, but we never, put the human resource for them to do the work that they were supposed to. So we have now kind of, in the sense, saying that BOI has not been able to get more than $1.5 to $2 billion of FDI into Pakistan for the last 10 years. And compared to our GDP, this is a very paltry amount. And agriculture, mines and minerals, these are my two favorite subjects. I don't want to think further because, I think like this. Let's get monies here. Let's get these both going. Let's get both of them exporting, and then we'll come to the rest. So corporate farming, mines and minerals, a Saudi project interest is there in our Reko Diq. I think there has been we have done some work in terms of getting the ownership of Reko Diq with us, the pricing done by an international consultant. So that's one project. Some corporate farming interest in the lands of Pakistan, the agriculture. But Faisal, you obviously have to remember one thing. When you're going into an election on 8th of February, a foreigner or a foreign government or a foreign company rightly would be right now thinking that let's just wait this out and see what happens on the 8th of February. It's only me and you who know that SIFC was created by PDM through the Constitution. It is going to be there in the next 5 years, and I think going to be the coordinating and implementing arm of the government.
Right.
But for the rest of the people, they would like the new government to come in and say what I've just said.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Khaqan Najib. Brilliant discussion, brilliant analysis. Thank you for your input. Of course, we do know that, as you've said, that we need to tap agriculture and mining industry in order to ensure that our economic development further takes place as well. And of course, structural reforms, that is very significant as well. And continuation of the economic policy by the previous government, of course, a positive economic policy in order to ensure that there is a structural policy, that we have a structural redevelopment of the policy and the structural economy, of course, reforms for the economic stability as well in the country. But of course, ladies and gentlemen, let's go towards our second topic, which is that of security. Of course, economy, politics, security, they all go hand in hand. And security has to be there in order to ensure that there is easier number one, playing field for the economy, and secondly, there's easier access for economic development as well, an easier way to develop economy as well. But of course, we do know that Pakistan has been going through a huge wave of terror for the past about at least 1 year, 1.5 years as well. And security personnel are the ones who have been targeted, in fact, in this as well. On Tuesday, we saw that in Bunair, 7 policemen were targeted, and they were, of course, taking the polio vaccinators. They were taking care of them. And of course, in DI Khan, on December 22nd, we saw a huge number of security personnel who were targeted and martyred as well. Farooq, we do know that this unfortunate situation is going on for quite a while as well.
Yeah.
And according to a certain research as well, there has been about 1,500 violence-linked fatalities from around 800 terror attacks. Faisal, I'd ask you first, how can we ensure that 2024 is a little different? Do you think it's going to be a little different?
I hope so. I always hope that every coming year becomes easier and easier for people of Pakistan, and of course for Pakistan as well in terms of security, because somehow, Taiba, everything is interlinked with the security. The country's security, the internal security and external security, both of them, they are pivotal when it comes to economy, when it comes to politics, when it comes to diplomatic relations with rest of the countries and neighboring countries. So it's always I always pay for it. But if we talk about our western border, of course we are facing challenges. We are facing constant challenges, and our security forces, day and night, they are bringing up their efforts and the best of the efforts to, of course, control this menace. But of course, what we have seen, that the pattern has entirely changed after Taliban regime took over in Afghanistan. Since they are sitting in Kabul, maybe they have some kind of insecurities themselves, that if they tighten a sort of a lid on the bottle which is sitting somewhere in Nangarhar, Kunnar, Nuristan, in them 3 provinces, of course that bottle is there in which all of these TTPs, they are sitting with the ISIS Khorasans, and nobody is bothering to put a lid on it and smash that bottle out there. This is first and foremost job of Taliban regime. Why I say this? Because while they were having negotiations with the Americans sitting in Doha Accord, they pledged and they said that we are going to ensure that our land is not going to be used against any of the neighboring countries, including Pakistan. But here we are still talking about it, and somehow earlier in the start, while you were talking about it, you talked something very important. That was that the security and economy, of course, they go hand and glove. And when it comes to Taliban regime, it is them who need to understand that when it comes to economy, their economy relies a lot on Pakistan. So if Pakistan's security is not insured, then of course their economy would not be insured.
Right.
So if they want to keep their economy going, then they have to ensure Pakistan's security as well. So whatever the challenges and whatever the sort of threats which are originating from within Afghanistan, They need to fix that, because if they want to fix their economy, they have to fix whatever the threats are for Pakistan.
Right.
So to me, I think it's a matter of highlighting. Pakistan needs to keep on highlighting these matters with the Taliban regime. Fair enough, they can say that we've just joined the offices and we're just trying to fix everything and we're just trying to control everything. Well, if you are trying to control everything, then in the list of controlling, put priority on this matter, that your neighbor, the one you rely on in terms of your economy, is suffering, and if it keeps on suffering, then time is not far that we have many options to deal with it. Then of course Pakistan would have to click on certain buttons to of course deal with it.
Right. Of course, Farooq, we know that we were talking about economy and politics and security all going hand in hand. There's a multidimensional approach towards this. Do you think we need to build capacity of those who are living in Balochistan and emerged districts and KP in order to ensure that they also resist terrorism in some form or the other?
Right, Tayyaba, and that is a very, very important question, because the biggest victims so far of TTP's attacks and all these groups have been law enforcement, particularly the provincial law enforcement, that is police. If you remember when this deal with TTP was cut, at that time we started seeing people policemen being beheaded. And one has to actually, salute the martyrs and the brave policemen who actually kept on standing for the national cause, and I think that continues. I wanted to actually go back to your original question, Tayyaba, and I wanted to, regarding 2024, whether it is going to be any better than 2023. The answer is yes, inshallah it is going to be better. There are very important signs why I'm saying this. First of all, unlike the previous military leadership where we saw some kind of compromise with TTP and similar groups, this time we have seen that the country's military leadership, especially the current army chief, is very clear on the need to fight these elements and to actually abolish them, to secure your country from such elements. And then you talk about DGISI, you talk about counter-terrorism wing, you talk about various other institutions. All of them are on the same page that these elements cannot survive in the country, including, by the way, Prime Minister of Pakistan, the current Prime Minister, and I'm hoping that all the candidates of Prime Ministership in the next election, they are also on the same page. So that is very important, Tayyaba.
Right.
Now there are two or three aspects to this situation. One was pointed out by my Wadi brother Raja Faisal, and that was the external. Then there is an internal, and the third one is another very important thing that we have to actually take stock of. The internal one is, of course, for following Afghan Taliban's rise to the government. At that time, Pakistani governments somehow thought that they can placate Afghan Taliban, and as a bundle deal, they have to actually compromise with TTP as well, and that has royally backfired.
Yes.
So that is one aspect that is very important, that these elements are now on your soil and you have to keep fighting. Luckily, they are not organized. They don't have any geographical territory under their control, unlike the previous years. But now that is why we need IBOs, intelligence-based operations, to take them out. The third one, and that actually takes me back to the cutting off deal with TTP, is the elements who might be TTP sympathizers, and they are in your system, and they were the people who actually dominated the national narrative during the last few months of PTI government. And those people have to actually be taken care of as well. And that's why we keep on hearing the Corps Commander meeting, other various fora who talk about not only terrorists, but their facilitators as well. So you have to actually have a collective, wholesome approach. Regarding external matter, Faisal has covered most of the ground, but you have to harden your border, no matter what. If you actually harden the border and ensure that there is no incursion,
Right.
then there is a great chance that these elements cannot do
Right.
much damage.
90% of the border has been fenced
90
as well.
97%,
97%.
98%,
And yet, unfortunately, the 2% of fencing that the border that has not been fenced is allowing these elements, the transnational terrorist elements, to come. And that does not only include TTP, but of course, we've seen ISK taking responsibilities of attacks, BLA, BLF reports of the collaboration between ISK and BLA, etc., etc. A very unfortunate situation. And of course, we've seen the US weapons being used as well, the advanced weapons being used. And of course, we do know that there are some important elements behind that are providing the logistics as well. Unfortunately, gentlemen, we have all the time for today. We will be back again on Monday. Thank you so much for joining us. Farooq Patafi, welcome back again. Thank you so much, Raja Faisal, for your analysis as always. Ladies and gentlemen, this was The Debate. Keep watching us, inshallah, next week. Take care.